began in 1943. My grandfather, father and a partner, they started a company called Anderson O'Leary Ltd. Initially they were just cutting firewood. Timber was the next thing. They moved and built a sawmill, and that sawmill was just right here on Briggins Creek Road in Pinepac. Along with the sawmilling, of course, there was bulldozers associated with getting those trees out of the bush, and so my dad was very keen on earth moving, and he developed an earth moving company. Back in the day, he had something like 12 D8 tractors, and so he did a lot of work for local people. He also constructed and moved a lot of dirt to form playing fields, parks, schools, and he covered really all the western districts and even out onto the North Shore, moving earth, getting those jobs done.
I started in the family business when I was probably about 14 odd, just on the school holidays cutting fence battens. After that I joined the company. I was a little apprenticeship guy, but no apprenticeship back in those days, but you know, it was sort of like learn by by your mistakes and get a kick up the arse when you did something wrong. I'm 7 years younger than Bruce, so he had a lot more experience in life than I ever did, and I was just a young teenager learning the ropes.
The company in 1970 was both in sawmilling and in earth moving, and then there was an unfortunate event. My dad was killed in a car accident in 1972, and that left the family with some serious choices as to what they would do next. My brother and I took up the challenge, as it were, and off we went, and we decided that we would run the company.
We got on really well. We had a couple of little arguments, but once we sorted them out and we knew what direction we were going in, we had a good time in the sawmill.
However, to make things a little simpler, we made a decision around 1976 to get out of earth moving construction because it was quite an expensive business to be in, and we decided to focus on sawmilling. So that's what we did. We had a grand auction here, almost on the ground we're standing on, and we cleared out most of those D8s, graders, bulldozers, all of that machinery. Gave us a clean slate to start with again, and so off we were. We're into sawmilling in a serious way and ready for the next phase.
Well, I joined the company because of an ad that was in the local paper. I talked with Bruce, and he kicked it around for a while, and then a few days later I went back to him and said, "Hey Bruce, what do you reckon?" And it was all on. He had employed me as mill manager, running a sawmill on a day-to-day basis. Working with the Anderson family was a great experience. It must have been pretty good for me to stay so long.
So during the 70s period, there was a lot of local building going on as well, and we'd always had a base of builders coming in and dealing with us. So we thought we should have a bit better offering, and that offering was to build a hardware store alongside our sawmilling operation. New building on the site that we have here, and that allowed us to service those local customers with an offering that really meant something.
So this is where it all started. This is where we entered the building materials supply side of the business. We're in the original Pinepac Handyman Centre store that was opened in 1977, and we're still here today in Pinepac, and obviously now we have two other stores, one in Kumeu and one in Swanson.
I started here, it was basically to get me out of school because I was just mucking around there. Job came up here in in the hardware store. And I had an interview with Bruce. It wasn't really long, and Bruce jested with me. He says, so if you don't like feeding in, why don't you go and tail out if you want to change? The person who got back to me was Wayne, Bruce's brother, and all he could say was, you better come better dressed on Monday. And so I thought, okay, I'm starting in the shop. In those days it was just 2 people, the store manager and the shop assistant. And that continued on for a while, and then the business grew and the staff numbers grew. Suffice to say, it was about 14 years in the store. Worked my way into the position of being the referred to as assistant store manager, but then the opportunity was given to me to move into admin, and that was largely based on I had become reasonably proficient with the operating system that we had been using. I can remember our first computer system going in and the excitement that was around that. So when the computer system came in, I can remember all the screens arriving and all the cabling that had to go in. So it was pretty exciting times, and we really thought we had arrived.
The focus on sawmilling was really the chance to bring in further processing. The site that we had here didn't really have very good kiln drying facilities, and we made the decision to put in some wood-fired boilers. That allowed us to utilise the waste products from the sawmill, and that led us into the next phase. There's always another one, and this next one was most exciting.
Early 80s we started doing a bit of motor racing, and at the same time we created the Pinepac brand, and that was mainly for export.
And what did it stand for? Well, it was pine from the Pacific. Pretty straightforward, but a nice catchy phrase. We researched the Australian market, and we also had a look up in the east in Singapore. So the 70s into the early 80s saw us exporting a lot of wood out of this sawmill. 50% of our production used to go out of here.
I had done at that stage 22 years in the sawmill as mill manager. Trees were getting hard to purchase around the place, and then the thought of owning a forest. They can't do 2 things. A sawmill can't own a forest. Suddenly it changed. 2 brothers suddenly decided that they would buy it. Lots of good decisions in that company in the early days were instant decisions.
When I look back and reflect on who was working for the company as well as family, they were an even bigger family. Freddie Anderson here, who you know, has been with us for over 40 years.
When I was going to school, I used to come and work for Anderson O'Leary's during the school holidays. When I left school, I went down to Taupo to work at a native sawmill, and I was there for 2 years, and then so I came back here to Auckland and worked for Anderson O'Leary's. I think that was about 1971. When I was on the forklift, I thought I'd have a change of job, because the log truck I thought would be worth a lot more money than driving a forklift. So I went and got my HT and my trailer license and all that, and it was actually Wayne Anderson that helped me do my truck and trailer license. And the first truck we had actually had 2 gear sticks. Not many guys can see trucks with 2 gear sticks. There, we had a truck with 2 gear sticks. I think it was about the 4th truck, and they put this big gearbox in, and we used to have Eaton dips on them, so they put the Eatons back in, and that logging truck had 42 gears. And there was one day I was going up Albany Hill, and a traffic cop, he was at the top of the hill, and he counted every gear I did going up that hill, and he says, "You got to be overloaded, it's got to be too heavy." I said, "No, this thing's got 42 gears." But he weighed me, and I was actually legal. So I told him. But now I got this truck, my new truck, it's actually got an automatic in it. Got no clutch. So I've actually got a left leg doing nothing. But the only reason they bought me an automatic, because they reckon I'm getting too old. And I don't think I'm too old. I actually miss the old gear stick.
I started 32 years ago as a sales representative based in Pinepac. I think the special part is it's a family company. Clients think the same thing. They'd rather deal with a family-oriented company rather than someone that doesn't tick all the boxes. And one thing about it, if you want to see Bruce, you can see Bruce. If you want to see Andrew, you can see Andrew. There's no like, oh, well, we'll have to see what the team thinks or something like that. You can walk straight in and talk to them, and yes. 75 years. The company has been around 75 years. It's a long time. Bruce is the kind of man that I saw put everything back into the business. I guess I learned a lot when I was in Canada because I worked for a company much the same size. And the same sort of thing happened. The principal put everything back into the company to grow it. It was always put back in. So I've seen that and the improvement of the buildings. They start up another building and then they start up another one, and everything's for the business and the people that work for them. I could tell what Bruce's angle was every time, and it was always putting things towards the staff, looking after stuff.
Now this is another generation of taken over, but they're still the same. All the whole 3 generations, you can actually talk to them, and that's what a lot of firms can't understand. You talk to the management, they talk to you. They're like, we're one big family.
I think the big thing was I'm working for the person who owns us, as opposed to having a job in some of these other places. You wouldn't know who you're working for.
That's the thread that's kept us going. We've had a lot of people work for us over an extended period of time. We've enjoyed that journey. We really have. A lot of families that we would now consider not related, but family.
Our future is about another 75 years of a family-owned, independent, operated business. The staff that we have here are part of our family, so we want to continue that spirit, we want to continue that culture, and so that makes for an exciting future.
Well, this is 75 years, and what comes to mind for me is people. Our forebears who established this company, the staff that's worked for us over the years, the customers that have been so loyal to us. Thank you to each and every one of them.